Welcome back, listeners, to a brand new episode of The New Standard. And I'm bringing you the program. My name is Lance Williams on December 1st, 2024, coming off the Steelers' resounding victory. I don't think anyone thought it would be that much of a shootout, 44-38, as the Pittsburgh Steelers improved to 9-3 as they go on the road to beat hated rival the Cincinnati Bengals and probably in the Bengals season. And at the end of the week, the Steelers will have the lead in the AFC North. They will retain it. At this moment, as I'm doing the show, do not know the result of the Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles game. But this was a very interesting game, as always, listeners. If you want to participate in the program, hit us with a like and a subscribe. Also, if you want to participate in the program via a donation, a super chat, hit us with the super chat. It is the holiday season, and this is the gift that keeps on giving. And this was a very interesting game. On this particular episode, we always jump into the numbers don't lie, some game grades, some winners and losers, and some overall holistic thoughts about the team as a whole. Very interesting program, or very interesting game, I should say. And it's very rare, and I make note of it all the time in football games that, particularly on the road, I'll throw that in there as well. If you give up a pick six, or if you give up a score outside of conventional means, you typically don't win that ball game. But the Steelers did the one thing you have to do to win that ball game. That is, you have to do it as well. So they were able to match the Bengals in the game with a defensive score, a defensive touchdown to match the Bengals' defensive touchdown. And that TD was huge in this game because a little bit of sloppy football, defensive football at the end of the game. They gave up two big scores. But in this game, we're going to jump into numbers don't lie. We're going to look at some winners and some losers, some game grades, and some overall thoughts in the game. When you look at this, man, some of these numbers are absolutely unreal. In this game, the Steelers had 28 first downs. They were 4 of 9 on third down. They had 500. Let me say this again. They had 520 net yards. They averaged 7.9 a play. They had a net of 410 passing yards and got a turnover, and they scored. Now, I'm going to just say this. I don't want anyone who's possibly listening to the program, I don't want them to choke on something. So I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Relax, chew your food before I say this stat. They scored 5 touchdowns in the game. 4 offensive touchdowns and 1 defensive touchdowns. They scored 5 touchdowns, and they only punted the ball 1 time. They punted the ball 1 time. This was an absolute outstanding performance on the offensive side of football. On the defensive side of football, very sketchy to start the game. Whatever adjustments Terrell Austin made and that staff made in the second half really started to pay off and pay some dividends because they were able to get some stops. When we jump into the winners and losers, we'll break down some of these penalties because in the game, the Steelers did commit 9 penalties, but the Bengals, being a bad football team as they are, they committed 11 penalties. So the Steelers had 103 penalty yards. I mean, man, they win a game giving up a pick six on the road with 103 penalty yards, and they still win. This was a fantastic win. Not a perfect win, but a very good win where the defense did not play its best in spots, but they were still able to go win the shootout and get 44 points on the road against a very good offense. This is what you want to see, just another way in which the Steelers can win a football game. They can win a football game in a shootout. On the defensive side of football, they did, however, give up 25 first downs, which is a ton. The Bengals were 4 of 8 on third down conversions, had a total net of 375. In terms of yards, averaged 6.6 yards per play. They ran it overall for 93 yards, passed it for 282. But the big deal in the game was the penalties. I think the penalties really hurt the Bengals. Again, they had 11 penalties in the game, gave up 101. Joe Burrow had a rating of 112 in the game, was 28 of 38 for 309, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I'm not sure going into this game, we would have thought that Russell Wilson would have outplayed Joe Burrow. But on this game, he absolutely, in my opinion, outplayed Joe Burrow in this game. Let me jump into some of your comments. Let me jump into a comment from Steelers Freak. Big up, Freak. Yes, I can feel it in the air tonight, baby. I'm hoping that the Philadelphia Eagles go on the road and beat the Ravens so the Steelers can get a little bit of room, get some payback against the Browns, and really be in control in the division. Big up to you, Ollie Howard Species, 5618. Assalamu alaikum, my brother. Mr. Tummy, I get it, Mr. Tummy. Happy for the win, but the defense is ass. I'm not sure the defense is ass. Let me say it this way. I don't think the defense is as good as we think, but not necessarily ass. I think an ass defense is what you saw on the other side of the ball. I think the Cincinnati Bengals defense is absolutely ass. That's an ass defense. That was an ass performance because I don't think any of us would have guessed that a Steeler offense would get 500 yards of offense and average almost 8 yards a play. I don't think we thought that the Steelers offense would do that even on Madden playing easy mode. There's no way we thought or we could envision that a Steelers offense would look so well coordinated, not really give up sacks. They only gave up 2 sacks in the game today. That was a big number in terms of numbers. Don't lie. I thought the pass protection was really good. That's an ass defense. The Steelers defense might be cheeks, but it's not ass. The Bengals defense is ass, but the Steelers defense, it's one of those win and correct games. That is a cliche, I know, but it is one of those games where you come out and say, man, we've got to improve in some areas, namely, and we'll jump into that in the winners and losers segment, is we've got to cut down on the penalties. We've got to play clean football to help ourselves compete and win these games. Corey Hatcher, and this is a good segue into the winners and the losers. We'll jump into the losers first. And I think the obvious losers on both sides of the ball, on defense, is Joey Porter Jr. And on the offensive side of the ball, the loser is George Pickens. George Pickens, immature, still very emotional, still getting some bad penalties called on him. If not for some of those penalties, the Steelers may have possibly scored 50 in this game. He's a young player that continues to have to be coached up in that regard. What I saw at the end of the game, I thought was very good. A picture, not sure what he and Cam Hayward were talking about. It sure did look like Cam Hayward was getting in the ear of the young player, giving him some nuggets, but the immaturity has to pipe down. The guns, the gun thing, whatever that he did, and so on and so forth. I mean, just make plays, baby. Just make plays. Let your play yell. Let your play do the talking and bring the emotion down just a little bit. But he's a high emotional guy. That is part of what keeps him going. He just has to figure out how to keep it in check. On the defensive side of football, like Corey Hatcher said, and Steelers Freak said, maybe Joey Porter should be called Joey Penalty Jr. Maybe I love Joey Penalty Jr. That I'm nominating that as a new nickname. Maybe a new nickname for Joey Penalty Jr. could be Summer League. If any of you guys are familiar with Summer League basketball, in Summer League, guys get 10 fouls instead of the normal 6 in an NBA game. He committed 6 penalties. He fouled out of an NFL game. If it were the NBA, he fouled out. How do you get 6 called penalties, 5 accepted? Listeners on the program, decide for me which one is better, Joey Penalty Jr. or Summer League. And Corey Hatcher is right. If you took a drink for every JPJ penalty, you might die from alcohol poisoning. They got to put the gloves on him. They've got to put the gloves on him. He's got to stop using his hands. He is now a guy that will not get the benefit of the doubt in coverage. If it is close, he is getting a penalty. What I would hate to happen would be at the end of the year in a big spot, he gets called for a DPI or a hold. I mean, the guy got a DPI and a hold on the same play. I mean, he is getting his money's worth. Joey Penalty Jr., Mr. Summer League, a.k.a. Mr. Summer League. I mean, gee, Manise. I mean, they've got to get his technique cleaned up. I know that Mike Tomlin has said it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. He is a corner. He is a good corner, to Grayson's point. Let's calm down. JPJ is a good corner. I felt like the refs were zoning in on him and not letting them play. Refs were terrible as usual. You can make that argument, Grayson, and pick up the Grayson. However, if you look at him on tape, you see it on tape, he's going to have to adjust the way that he plays. Simple. He is a target. Whether officials do a good job of calling it, guess what he can do? Not get his hands involved so they can't call it. He has to clean up his technique. You cannot get 6 penalties called on you. That is a problem. Best believe teams are going to target it, and they are. And especially if the Steelers want to play him on one-on-one coverage, he's got to get that cleaned up. Again, listeners, you're checking out the program, The New Standard. Less Russ cook, but let's accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. And I'm just trying to quote Aretha Franklin doing the popular song that she did back in the day, positivity. Let's switch reels and let's jump into the big winner, Poppy Chula. That's my quarterback. Russell Wilson was straight up cooking. I like Octopus Porter. Also, pick up the Marcus J. You are right. Herbig is a big dog. Big play by Herbig in the game to cause the strip sack fumble for the touchdown. Turned out to be a big play in the game. Herbig is an absolute big dog, and TJ Watt showed up again in this game and had a nice bounce back game. But Russell Wilson was cooking, man. Let Russ cook. Get out of Russ's way. And Arthur Smith did a fantastic job of being the sous chef, calling up a fantastic game. Let Russ cook. 29 of 38, 414 yards passing, 3 TDs, 1 interception on a bang-bang play in which George Pickens was, in my opinion, was penalized and thrown to the ground for a pick six with a rating of 126.4. Also, he was very good in the pocket. His pocket awareness was fantastic. He was not holding the ball. He was getting in and out of the calls. Like Corey Hatcher said, you could hear the audibles. Ringo, Lucky, the running back screens. His management of the ball game, along with his pocket awareness and his precision on the deep ball, it was a master class. This was an absolute master class performance. And if there's any question as to who is the starting quarterback for the Steelers moving forward, it is Russell Wilson. It has absolutely been eliminated. Because one of the things I talked about is I thought that Russ had started taking too many sacks. But they only gave up 2 sacks of 4 yards in those games, and in this game, and that was non-consequential. What Russ was doing was he was killing his own offense when he was giving up the sacks and holding on to the ball too long. But he did a fantastic job getting the ball out, having a nice feel of the pocket in this game. And I'll guarantee you, on the mini buy, they emphasized his pocket awareness. They absolutely emphasized, look, Russ, we need you to get this ball out. We need you to manage this better. You've got an inexperienced offensive line. You are going to have to take care of these guys and manage your presence in the pocket and help these guys out. He was in total control in the pocket. And did anyone really see Hendrickson make a play? I thought Dan Moore was solid in pass protection, and I thought Broderick Jones was solid in pass protection. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there was a penalty called on Broderick Jones in this game, which is a major improvement. They looked like a very well-coached outfit on the offensive side of the ball coming off the mini break. And after there was a little bit of rumor and some scuttlebutt about Arthur Smith possibly taking the job, in North Carolina. Now he came down and resignedly said, no, he didn't want to take that job. He called a fantastic game. He and Russell Wilson absolutely showed out. Mr. Tunney is right. Russell Wilson did look absolutely more decisive in the pocket. Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith absolutely showed out. They went to Cincinnati and wiped their feet on the rug. They went in and get your feet off my. They put their feet on the couch. They rubbed them feet on the couch. They played some solid football. And so Corey Hatcher brought up a very good point. This is one I didn't think of, that pro coaches don't want to deal with NIL and recruiting. NIL is a big deal now. If North Carolina's NIL is nowhere near Clemson's or Florida State's, then they can't compete, bottom line. And nowadays, you got coaches in hoops, college hoops, quitting because of NIL. And like he said, and as I was trying to get it out, Grimlock G, F your couch, nigga. F your couch, ninja. F your couch. That's one of the greatest skits of all time. One of the greatest skits of all time on the Dave Chappelle show. Now, in terms of game grades, but absolutely, the winners in this game, Russell Wilson, Arthur Smith. The losers in this game, Joey Porter Jr. and George Pickens Jr. Game grades, I think you've got to give the offense an A. I'm not even sure how many negative plays they took in the game. This was an outstanding performance. I'm going to give the defense, I'm going to give them a B minus. I thought they were a little bit loose on the last couple of drives in the game to let the Bengals get back into the game. I thought they did not start the game off very well, but I thought they made a solid adjustment in the second half. They made some adjustments. They started slowing down uh the Bengals defense, and I'm looking at the comments, the Bengals offense. I'm getting ripped. I want to hear, okay, so I'm getting ripped. I feel like I'm being a homer in my grades by giving him a B minus. Coach Corey says C minus. Marcus J laughed at a C minus. Mr. Tummy said, or B minus, he laughed at. Mr. Tummy said C minus. Oh my goodness. Coach Hatcher said they were getting run through like it was a Mandingo party. Ouch. Pause. 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 I saw, oh, wow. That did, wow. Wow. They gave up 31 points. Okay. Let me reiterate my grade. Okay. They did give up 31 points. Let's say this. They played B football in a stretch. I will agree with you guys, and I will change my score. I'm going to give them a C, that it was a passing grade only because they won the game. Steelers fan 973 chimed in and said, JPJ only gets in trouble when he's playing press. He has to understand this type of NFL doesn't allow physical defense no more. And he's got to get coached to it. I mean, he's played enough games and enough snaps. I mean, 5 penalties, 6 called penalties, 5 accepted in a game. Here's my concern with that, Steelers fan 973. Make an adjustment on how you're playing in game. You clearly see, and the staff sees, that even if he's not getting targeted by the staff and his bad calls or whatever you want to say, he is a focus. They are getting he is getting calls. The crew is calling it tight when it comes to him. Either you're going to have to make some coverage adjustments in terms of what you're calling, or he is going to have to make some adjustments in how he is covering. You can't be stubborn and continue to say, I'm just going to keep playing. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Yes, and if you keep doing what you're doing, they're going to keep calling what they're calling. And it's easy to say that, sitting doing a podcast, as opposed to in real time. But I think this is a test where, and maybe Corey Hatcher can chime on this from a defensive standpoint. Corey, what's your thought? I mean, can his defensive coordinator help him out in terms of calls, in terms of getting him out of more cover one opportunities or more one-on-one, some man opportunities, and getting him into some zone opportunities to take some stress off of him? I think there should be some things that a coordinator can do to take some stress off of JPJ, aka Joey Penalty Jr., aka Summer League, because I think he's clearly in his head. And it's interesting. And Corey, thank you for the answer, Corey. Corey said no, he's got to learn how to play better technique. I get it. I get it. And it feels like with Corey's answer, it kind of makes me feel like when you're on the golf course and you're trying to hit a putt and you've got a guy trying to give you a tip about your putting stroke, you can't implement it. You can't implement it in real time. You have to just go with what got you there. You have to practice it in a week of practice, because if you try to switch up in game, you really might get caught out there. Holistically, before we wrap up, the Steelers have won in a variety of ways now. We've seen them win the shootout today. We've seen them win the all field goals game multiple times. And Corey brings up another good point. His always is going to default back to holding. Like that's what it is. That's in his DNA. They've got to get that out of him. And maybe they'll put gloves on him. I'm not sure what they can do. But But I agree with Grayson. Holistically, I think they can win any matchup in the AFC in the playoffs, except for I don't feel comfortable. And again, you're listening to the new standard Let Russ Cook, Steelers versus Bengals post game show. I could have named the show as well. That's my quarterback. I could have named it. I could have named that as well. Big up the lower top life. Please smash the like button as well. I think you will see Joey Porter step up. Holistically, I think the Steelers can beat anybody in the AFC in a playoff game, in a matchup. I also think they can possibly lose to any team as well. I think their margin for victory in the playoffs is probably not that high. Whereas I think Buffalo, if they had to win multiple shootouts in the playoffs, I think they could. I think they match up pretty well against Kansas City. Kansas City is not an explosive offense. They're still a good tackling team. Special teams is solid. I think they match up pretty well on the AFC side. I'm not going to think about Super Bowl right now. I think that's premature. I think right now, the way it's going, I think they bounce back, beat the Browns. I think they're going to win a division. Um, I think they've got to get the JPJ, the Joey Kennedy Jr., that thing sorted out. I think they can get that sorted out. But I think that's a little bit of recency. We've just seen it a lot. But I think they can get that cleaned up. They were better in the red zone today. This is a good football team. Is it a perfect football team? No. And Corey Hatcher Jr. is right. If you want to get JPJ Jr.'s attention, bench his ass. I mean, that is. I mean, that is absolutely a way to do it. That you've got to be tighter on your P's and Q's on your technique. Grayson chimed in, or bench him for a quarter. Oh, ye of little faith. Lance, they can beat any team in the AFC. Bills have only beat one team with a winning record. KC, lucky as hell. Everyone else can get some. I don't disagree with that a ton. I'm just thinking that if they had to go to Buffalo, that it's a tough game there. I think they definitely could beat anybody at the crib at Acro-Hines. They beat anybody at Acro-Hines. But I don't know if there's a world beater on the AFC side. I just don't. I think the best team in football is Philadelphia, but I don't think there's a world beater on the AFC side. And to Grayson's point, I think they're competitive against anyone in the AFC in the playoffs. I don't think they're more of at most, I mean, they were 2.5-point dogs against the Bengals. I would assume if they played the Bills, I'm guessing they would be 3.5-point dogs. I guess they would be 3.5-point dogs. That is right, Mel. They had one punt today. We talked about that earlier in the program in terms of some of the numbers we were looking at and focusing on. Impressive game on the offensive side of football. Got to do some cleanup on the defensive side of football. Again, a road divisional win where you go on the road and play your best offensive football, put up 40 points, take a commanding lead. In my opinion, well, the Ravens look like they're getting ready to put it on Philadelphia as they go up 10-0, as Lamar is just throwing up prayer balls in the end zone, getting it to Mark Andrews, as it looks like he's going to win a third MVP. But yes, to Corey's point, defense was not acceptable in too many stretches. They got to get better. I see some slide in the defense, particularly in the red zone. There is still some meat on the bone, and that's a good thing. But I would rather them be in this position, going with the possibility of being 10-3 and being up a game and a half in the division as they get things fixed. But it was good to see TJ back, TJ hot. So that was encouraging as well. The 3rd and 21 that they gave up, like Corey's talking about, was bad. There were some bad spots definitely on defense. That's why the overall grade on the offense was an A and the defensive grade was a C. But with that, we're going to conclude the program and hope the Philadelphia Eagles realize that they are playing in a football game, and hopefully they can beat the Ravens. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. Hope everybody on the show had a fantastic Thanksgiving, ate a bunch of turkey, and are now ready to power it out and close the year strong. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.